Hey guys, it is Jeremy Kurlikowski here, and I wanted to welcome you guys to, I guess we could call it season two, season three. I don't know. I just had taken a little break from doing some lives, but I'm so excited to do this live today, guys, because this issue of anxiety, especially as it relates to your finances, is so prevalent in society right now. It is something that's been so prevalent on a lot of the calls I've done recently. And even I just got off a call with a guy who's like, I'm feeling it like 5, 10 times a day. I'm feeling that anxiety. Or people where they're like having those hot, like it's almost like the sweaty, the heart palpitations, like waking up in the middle of the night to it, like you're perfectly sound asleep, everything's fine, and all of a sudden you get that jolt and they're wide awake and they can't go back to sleep, or they just wake up because they have to go pee or something, and then all of a sudden they can't go back to sleep because their mind is just spinning in areas that have to do with their finances. Now if you're watching this and you feel like my finances are okay, they're not that bad, but you're still dealing with anxiety, I would still tell you to watch and pay very close attention to this live, because this training is going to absolutely be world class in helping you overcome what is it that's really causing you to keep struggling with anxiety, especially as it relates to your finances, but not just that, how to overcome it, how to actually fix it. And I can guarantee you it's probably not the conventional stuff that you've heard, the typical tricks and, just count backwards from 10 and, take these breaths or whatever. Especially it's not about medicating things like that, guys. We're talking about natural God given abilities to fix the anxiety at the root, and not just fix it, guys, but actually keep it gone. You do not have to deal with chronic anxiety. If any of you guys are watching, if you've had panic attacks, if you've had anything like that, I've had them. Okay, I've had panic attacks in the past. I had uncontrollable anxiety. I didn't know what to do with it. And a lot of it at the root of it came down to financial stress. Okay. And it doesn't mean that you're living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, if you are, you're definitely going to be feeling it. But there's other ways that it can come up. And again, it can be around the conversations with the spouse around money that you'd feel anxiety. It could be about just the future down the road of knowing what's going to happen with retirement, or there's somebody that you want to help and you can't help. You're feeling anxiety about that, whatever. But just please pay attention, guys, because by the time we're done, again, you're going to know exactly what is it that's causing the anxiety to keep happening, that you feel like you don't know what's wrong and how to fix it. But again, how to actually fix it and how to overcome that. So you guys are going to love this live. So guys, let's just dive in, because this is one of those things, if you don't fix it and if you don't know how to get to the root of anxiety, it is absolutely life controlling. And it's one of those things that, whether it's costing you your sleep, whether you find yourself putting on weight, or you find yourself having to medicate, whatever it might be, you find yourself getting snippy with your spouse, or snippy with your kids, or just kind of feeling on edge at all times, waiting for something to just kind of jump out, or be the other shoe to drop. Maybe you can relate to that. You feel like you're always waiting for something to go wrong, and it keeps you on edge all the time. If you keep having to live in that state, like I said, there's serious health consequences to that. There's serious consequences for your relationships. A lot of marriages fall apart because of this. A lot of relationships get broken up because of this. And not just that, guys, but it really is something that will sabotage you financially, because if you are living in constant anxiety, guys, I do not know a lot of rich people that are marked by anxiety constantly. It's one of those things that you have to know how to overcome, because when you are dealing with anxiety around money, you're going to find that you find yourself playing small. You find yourself not taking risks. You find yourself doing things that are very quote unquote safe, and it's kind of like you're like the squirrel, like hiding all the nuts and preserving it. But meanwhile, you find that because you're so afraid of doing certain things that are going to move the ball actually down the court, in your finances, and getting your debt out of your life, getting up more income, things like that, you're going to find that you find yourself paralyzed and stuck. You kind of frozen up. And what happens is, ultimately you end up, the things that you're afraid of usually it comes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It usually ends up actually happening because you're not taking the action steps you need to prevent those things, because you're in so much anxiety. Does that make sense? So really what we're going to talk about first of all is the first reason why you are struggling with anxiety, specifically around finances, and it's just not going away. Okay. And again, guys, this works for any anxiety, but I'm just specifically talking about financial anxiety, which is so cool, because we have a lot of people that we work with and they're coming in for finances, but then like, oh my gosh, my whole life was changed, because we're giving strategies that work for everything, when it comes to dealing with these emotions. Because guys, it's the name of the game. Like, if you can't learn how to master your beliefs and emotions around money, that's 90 some odd percent of the problem every single time, period. Not the plan. It's kind of like, why does America struggle with overeating, or struggle with, being obese? Most Americans, is it because we don't know where a gym is, or because we don't know like how to eat better foods, or not eat processed foods, or not eat as much fast food or junk food? No. The reason why most people are overweight and struggling and have poor health in this country is because there's certain things that we should be doing that we're not doing, or there's certain things that we're doing that we know we shouldn't be doing and we are doing. Okay. And that comes back to what's going on in your mindset, what's going on in your emotional home. And so, what we're going to talk about is the reason why, again, first of all, number one, it's because you're simply not accepting that you are anxious. And what I mean by that is you are not giving yourself permission to stop and feel what you are feeling. So maybe you're checking your bank account and you see that there is a huge hit that you weren't expecting. Or maybe you're talking to somebody like I was just talking to today who got a huge bill from the IRS for $18,000 that they weren't expecting. And that, all of a sudden, boom, 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 you start having that, kind of your breath get taken away. It feels like a punch to your gut. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's whenever you talk about finances, or you have to, maybe you're coming home from the store and your spouse sees a certain purchase and you start feeling anxious because now you feel like you have to start justifying, or you have to start explaining everything. Or again, maybe you find that you're feeling anxious um, just when it comes to seeing the debt. You see how much debt you have, or you're getting those phone calls, or you're getting those letters in the mail, or whatever it might be, and you feel anxious when you get them. It's like you see who it's from, or you see who's calling. You're like, God, is that probably who it's from again? Funny story, real quick. Back in the day when I was really struggling, well, actually, this is before I was even married, but I had some stuff done medically. I didn't pay for it. I was thinking I was a teenager or something, but I called it bill hasslers because I was tired of seeing who that way. If I see it calling, I don't pick up. And like 2 years later, or a year later, I looked down at my phone after I hadn't heard from him for a long time. I was like, who the heck is Bill Hassler? So just a little funny side joke. It was the collections company. But bottom line, whatever those circumstances are for you, you're not allowing yourself. When you find that happen, first of all, you have to let yourself accept it. You have to let yourself feel what you are feeling around the circumstance. In other words, you have to connect with what's going on in your body. You have to first of all stop and accept the fact that you're feeling anxious, right? Because if you don't, guys, what's going to happen is what most people do when they face anxiety, they do a few different things. Okay. One of them, which is one of the primary things, is it's just suppressing it by distracting ourselves. And this might come in the form of, it could come in the form of medications, food, alcohol, drugs, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you name it, going to the gym, going out in the woodshed, or working out in the garage, going in the man cave. It could go, I mean, just guys, you name it. I mean, food, shopping, scrolling around the computer, looking at random things like that, basically reaching out to other things to try to distract yourself from the feeling that you're feeling, which is also just on a practical level. Like if your thing, the way that you deal with anxiety is by distracting yourself from it, especially like by buying things like food or stuff on Amazon, whatever, you're going to find that ironically, again, it causes more of some of the financial stress and problems that end up causing the anxiety, which then causes you to do that. And you kind of see how you guys kind of see how it's like becomes cyclical of a problem. So that's just one example of it. Or again, maybe you find that whenever you're anxious, you find yourself stress eating and you find yourself putting on weight, which ultimately that causes health complications, that causes challenges, which end up costing money. And then you end up with medical bills and you end up having to pay that and all of that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? So in other words, instead of allowing yourself to feel it and accept it, you distract yourself from it. And I'll be honest, okay, because people watching this are probably Christians. I think Christians are probably some of the most guilty at this because we feel spiritual in the way that a lot of us suppress the emotions that we're feeling and distract ourselves from it. And here's what I mean. A lot of Christians, instead of accepting the anxiety and then dealing with it at the root as to why it's there, they go straight to, and I used to do this too, go straight to prayer, go straight to worship, go straight to whatever. And a lot of Christians feel like it's inherently sinful to always feel it. So especially then they're like, oh no, I don't need to, take my mind off it. God, please forgive me, whatever. And then they go straight to doing something to take their minds off it. Now, I'm not saying don't pray. I'm not saying don't worship. I'm not saying don't, maybe there is some sin involved. But here's what's really interesting. 90% of the time, those fears, I'd say, or more, probably even more than that, are totally legitimate. In other words, if all of a sudden you're getting chased by a bear in the woods and your bear spray isn't working and you're like half a mile away from your car and the nearest cell phone, are you going to feel like you sinned because your heart was there was palpitations and you were having like the hot sweats and you were freaking out and crying? No. It's a totally legitimate fear. It's a survival technique that God has given you so that you don't die. And so it's one of those things where when those kinds of things are happening, like if you're not paying your bills, if you are behind, if you have tons a mountain of debt, if you are hiding things from your spouse, if you are coping in ways that you know are negative to your health and have serious consequences, if you just you name it, you know what I mean? Like basically, if you're not doing what God has said to do, which is following a plan and sticking to it and saving and paying off debt and all of these sorts of things, you're going to find that the consequence of that is that you feel anxious. And it's totally legitimate and appropriate. You should feel anxious. It's there to save you and get you to do something about it, which is what we're going to talk about here in a little bit, okay? But and unfortunately, a lot of Christians use spiritual things as a way to not deal with their emotions and not deal with ultimately the underlying problems that are causing them to keep getting triggered into anxiety, okay? So that is one of the things that you have to be aware of. If you find yourself when you're feeling anxiety about the finances, immediately going to some Bible verse out of context, or you find yourself turning on the radio or just going immediately into prayer, those are all good things. But I would just say, guys, I would immediately, well, not the taking Bible verse out of context. First of all, just accept it. Let yourself feel it. Like, I'm feeling anxious before you judge it. Okay. So you got to accept it. Otherwise, guys, what you're going to find is you end up coping in that, or maybe you start expressing it. I got to talk about it. Let me call my pastor. Let me talk to my spouse. Let me talk to my best friend. Let me just talk, 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 talk. And you think that by processing it out loud, it's going to make the fear go away, and it doesn't. If anything, it amplifies it because you're talking so much about it instead of actually dealing with why it's there in the first place, okay, and fixing it. So it's that, or again, a lot of people, they just project it. They take time and then they go and find ways to like find other ways, like, and get, frustrated, or anxious with the people that them sending these letters. And God, why did you have to bring this up about the money again? And, they project it onto their kids. Like it's their kids' fault, making them feel anxious because they keep asking for things, whatever that would be. And guys, ultimately what it comes down to is the number one thing you have to do, again, to deal with the anxiety and get it to go away is, first of all, just accept it. Like, stop and feel it in your body instead of just immediately dismissing it as inherently wrong and irrational. And guys, here's the thing. A lot of our fears are irrational. A lot of them are dumb, but more often than not, you're going to find that underneath the hood of that fear, there is some truth there. There's a kernel of truth, if not in a huge amount of truth, like an entire like mountain size of truth of that is trying to get your attention, that is trying to communicate something that you need to deal with. In other words, if you are like, let's just say maybe it's cancer, and it's like, or you're on your neck, you feel like a huge lump on your neck. You're like, well, that's weird. You feel a bit anxious. Maybe your dad had cancer and that, it's somewhere in the chest or something, or whatever. That's kind of weird. Oh, I'm anxious. Oh no, trust the Lord with all my heart. Lean on my own. Okay. But then it gets bigger and then bigger and then bigger, and you keep getting more and more and more anxious. The reason why you're getting more anxious is because God has given you an ability, or maybe it's the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, your God-given conscience or intelligence, to do something. You need to pay attention to this, but most of us stuff it. Okay. So first of all, you have to accept it. It's the same thing with your finances. If your debt is growing or it's not going anywhere, or you're finding that there's more fights in your household, or there's more disconnection in your household around just, again, intimacy, finances, anything that can, it's all relates to everything, guys. You find yourself dealing with more anxiety attacks, things like that. Pay attention. Your body is trying to communicate something. Maybe you're not sleeping enough. Maybe there's other things going on. And again, I would say that the most common stressor I see with people in their life has to do with money in some way, shape, or form. And it's like, well, it's not always about money. Well, it's like, it's about my work. Well, if you had no debt and you had 50 grand in the bank and you could work anywhere, would you be feeling as stressed out if you had more options? Well, probably not. Okay. If, well, oh, well, it's not that I just haven't gone on vacation. Well, if you had more money and you didn't have to worry about taking time off, even unpaid time off, okay, would you be stressed out about going on vacation? Probably not. Okay. So you know what I'm saying? Could you go on more vacations? Yes. Could you get more massages? Yes. Could you buy healthier food to take better care of your health? Yes. I mean, all of those things are true. So yes, guys, in some way, shape, or form, pretty much every stress in some way, shape, or form has to come down to money. It's really interesting. Okay. So number one, again, if you want to deal with it, first of all, accept the anxiety. Number two, the reason why people, again, if you're watching this, you're struggling with anxiety a lot, it's because number two, you're making it inherently wrong, like I was talking about earlier. In other words, you're instantly judging yourself as this shouldn't be here, versus, again, just accepting it and not assuming that it's crap, not assuming that it's ridiculous, and not assuming that it's being dramatic. A lot of the fears, I mean, most of the fears that I hear from people, if I might ask, okay, what is your greatest fear? Oh, this is what I'm afraid of. It's legitimate. I'm afraid that my spouse might leave. I'm afraid that I might end up losing my house or my car. I'm afraid that I can end up having a stroke or a heart attack or cancer. I'm afraid that we could end up having to file bankruptcy. I'm afraid that We would end up out living, working in a job that I can't stand and just being miserable. I'm afraid of never being able to retire. I'm afraid I won't be able to send my kids to college. I'm afraid that, um, I mean, guys, you name it, I mean, there's so many legitimate fears that an emergency might come and I might not be able to pay for it. I have to move in with my parents, or I might not be able to have money to help my parents that are dying or that are aging. All of those things are legitimate fears, guys, all of them. And so, like, most of those anxiety feelings that you're feeling, which are really just sensations of your body, right? It's a feeling in your stomach, a feeling in your chest, maybe a tightness in your shoulders, whatever. Those parts of the body are responding for whatever reason because they're trying to get your attention and communicate something to you. And if you immediately write off your anxiety as being overly dramatic or ungodly or whatever that would be, then you're probably not going to allow yourself to feel it and then do the digging to figure out why it keeps coming up, which is again what we're about to talk about here in a little bit. And part of why this is also helpful, guys, is when I say, like, like I said earlier, you like most of the things that you would blame as like, oh, this is sinful. If you really think about it, I would honestly argue that most of the anxiety, a lot of it that you're feeling is not. And the problem is that a lot of Christians have taken Bible verses out of context, like fear not for I am with you, things like that. And so then taking that to mean like if I feel a moment of fear that like I'm sin because I'm not trusting that God is with me. Again, that's just as ridiculous as saying that you're in sin because you're freaked out running from the bear, because like, well, I know God is with me, but I can still die. like 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 there's people that die all the time because they're not wearing a seatbelt and they get in a car accident and then they get thrown through the windshield and they're lying there and it's like, I'm pretty sure I'm dying, or they get shot with a bullet. Like, just because God is sovereign and just because God loves you and all of these things doesn't mean that we're not going to have bad things happen to us and that we shouldn't be afraid of dying. It doesn't mean that like we don't believe God is with us. Like, I believe God is with me. I believe God was with me when I lost my dad. I believe God was with me when my daughter died. Thank God she came back to life. But I still believe God was with me. But I was afraid because I wanted her to be alive. I was afraid of what might happen. Like, there are, like, if you really search the scriptures, like when it's talking about fear, especially in the Old Testament, a lot of those passages, it's like they were afraid to go into the promised land because they did not believe God was with them and they didn't believe that God was powerful enough and things like that. And it's like God had explicitly told them, it's like, this is yours, you can do this. It was an explicit promise, and they said no. They were afraid. And so the thing is that was a specific context and a specific passage, and you have to look at these things in context and realize that, like, the Bible does not make it so that just because you're feeling a queasy feeling or something in a stomach, that that is inherently sinful problem and that you should totally dismiss it. And even then, guys, you have to accept it, because even if it was sin for some reason, Jesus died for that, and you have to accept it. Because if you don't accept the anxiety and acknowledge it and like that, accept that it's really actually happening and that you're actually having those anxieties, again, you're not going to notice the patterns that keep triggering you to cause you to struggle with anxiety. And then you're not going to find yourself fixing the reason why it's still there. So I'll give you a perfect example. Again, if you find that um, you, every time you get a letter in the mail from like bill collector or something like that, or you get them calling your credit card company, something like that, and you keep dismissing it and you don't accept that you're feeling anxious, you don't accept that you're feeling anxious, you don't accept it, and then get to the truth of what do I need to do to fix it, which is what we're about to talk about, you're going to find that you don't find yourself taking the action steps to actually do that. And you're going to find they keep calling, you might get sued, things like that, your wages garnished, whatever. It's not fun. Nobody wants that. And so I'm just saying, guys, you have to accept it so that now you will acknowledge it and realize it's there, and that you will actually do something about it. And again, it's literally no different than if you were out in the middle of the woods and you were like you just slayed a deer, and then at night you hear a pack of wolves surrounding. Like, if you don't accept that the wolves are there and you don't acknowledge their presence, you're probably going to end up with maybe like one arm that's not there in the morning time, because you're not going to deal with the wolves that are outside, guys. Do you understand? So that's the second piece, okay? Is like, not like, don't make it inherently wrong. Don't judge it as being like inherently wrong or sinful, whatever. You just have to first of all accept it, and then you have to not judge it. But then the last thing, guys, is allowing yourself to feel it. And guys, there's a whole technique and a process for this we teach our clients. I don't have time to get into it right now. But the final thing I would just say as a general principle, guys, is the reason why you're struggling with the anxiety is because you're not dealing with the underlying triggers that are causing you to keep feeling anxious. Like, you're just not fixing the root of the problem. And when I talk to Christians, this is why in our main webinar that we have for people that are wanting to get out of debt, and guys, this is true for anything. I just found it even with Christians' health and things like that. So many Christians, guys, it's like we use Bible verses or promises taken out of context or whatever to, like, God is with me, or he's my father, or I'm his child, or he's going to provide, and he always, he's promised that no enemies shall come again, whatever it would be. we take some benediction, some promise out of context, and we use that to like as a band-aid over the problem versus actually fixing the problem at its root and believing the other promises in scripture that say we reap what we sow. That again, like if the faith without works is dead, all of these other passages that talk about like our actions represent the truth and what's going on in our hearts. And if we don't fix what's going on in the heart and why we keep making the decisions that we're making, and then we're going to find ourselves continuing to make bad decisions, hurting relationships, hurting our health, hurting our finances, whatever. And we find ourselves continuing to struggle, continuing to just be in that place of misery. And so you have to deal with the underlying reason why you are continuing to struggle. So if you're feeling anxiety around your money, it's probably because you have debt that needs to get out of your life because guys, it is risky. It is inherently risky to carry debt, period. Like it is something that could absolutely destroy you if you lose your job, if something happens to your health, if again, all of a sudden you have an emergency and you can't get access to more debt to cover it because you don't have enough savings. Who's going to pay for it? Like your family, the church, the government, like someone's going to have to cover that. And so it is risky. Like you need to deal with your debt. If you don't currently have a plan for the money that's coming in, you need to get a plan for the money that's coming in that is solid, that if you're married, both you and your spouse agree upon, something that you can stick to, something that's simple enough for you to actually notice where the money's going, but not just that, make a plan for it intentionally before it actually enters your wallet or your bank account. So that again, instead of wondering where it went, you're telling it where to go, and it's actually like you're sticking with it and you're doing that. Okay. You've got to have that, guys, because otherwise you could have double, triple, quadruple the amount of money, and you're going to find that you find yourself no richer or more like no better off because of it. Okay. So you have to do that. If you're not making enough money right now, you have to acknowledge that. You have to deal with it. You need to get after that raise. You need to get after that promotion. You need to get after that opportunity within your company to be an entrepreneur, right? Working within it to find out hidden opportunities and places to increase revenue and then get a piece of that pie. You need to, improve your business. You need to scale up your business. You need to get rid of those, make your business more efficient so you can pay yourself more and so that you can do more of what you need to in your life to take care of your family. And like all of those things, like around, like you need to deal with that. Like most people that we talk to, like if you really look at their long-term goals, maybe not short-term, they're like, yeah, if we just do this, we could pay off the debt and whatever. But long-term, they still have a good ways to go in terms of getting ready for retirement. They still have a good ways to go preparing for some of these bigger emergencies and things that could hit them from out of nowhere. And they need to make more money. They need to have a plan for their finances. They need to get on the same page with their spouse if they're not already. All of those sorts of things, guys, are things that you need to address, like black and white in your finances, like the actual strategy of what you're doing and having a plan, having a roadmap for what's going on with your money. You need to have that fixed. And if you don't fix it, you're going to find that time and time and time and time again, it's going to keep bubbling up and you're going to keep dealing with the same problems. Okay. And so, guys, that's really the show for today. Is what we're really talking about again, guys, is just making sure that you guys are dealing with the root of the issue, that you are getting to it and accepting the anxiety, letting it run, and then really getting to the truth of what do I need to do to fix it. And so, and finally, guys, what I want to do to wrap this up, put a bow on it, is what do you need to do to fix it? Now, again, you're watching the show. Okay. Chances are you are not currently working with an expert to make sure that you are getting your money under control and that you're increasing your net worth and that you are getting the debt out of your life. You are getting your savings up, all of that. You're getting on the same page with your spouse, whatever those things are. And if you're not, why not? Why not work with an expert? Why not work with somebody that is trained and has spent the hundreds, thousands of dollars, thousands of hours, all of these sorts of things to figure out the problems and most efficiently, not just I know how to identify them, but fix them like that so that you don't have to struggle, guys. I can tell you this. We literally, within a matter of sometimes like 30 minutes, 20 minutes, can take somebody who is struggling with a chronic lifelong struggle with anxiety in a certain area or frustration of a certain area with their finances, whatever that might be, and completely turn it around. Because guys, we are really freaking good at what we do. And we have spent a lot of time and money to figure out how to do that in the best ways and practicing and working through those things so that our clients can get the results in a matter of weeks, weeks, days, minutes, whereas most people will struggle their entire life with it, even if they've been to counseling, even if they've been to therapy, even if they've been to their pastor, even if they've read the books, even if they've taken the church courses, even if they've done all of these different things. to try to fix it, guys. They've taken the medications, whatever it would be, even medications, guys. It's not fixing the root of why you are having financial anxiety. It's only going to mask the symptoms. And it's only, again, if you're taking that, I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying it's not going to deal with the underlying reason why you keep feeling anxious, right? You have to fix that. And so, how about instead of slapping band-aids on it by doing all these different things, why don't you guys reach out to somebody that actually knows what the heck they're talking about and can help you figure out what are those underlying reasons that are causing you to keep struggling? What needs to get fixed? And how is the best strategy, or what is the best strategy to fix it? And how can you do that in a way that works for you, that's simple, that's understandable, that is, it's, and where you can still be comfortable and you can still have fun and you can still have a great time, just enjoying your current fruitfulness of your hard work, but also being responsible, planning for the future, and having all those things mapped out clearly. And so, guys, if you need help with that, you can go to jeremykrulikowski.com/apply and just book a call with us. And let's see how we can help you guys and figure out, again, what's really not working, how is this showing up, but more importantly, guys, where is it that you guys want to go and where do you want to end up, and how can we make it so that you guys can hit all the goals that you have and that you're not struggling and that you're not overwhelmed and that you're able to feel a sense of freedom. You're able to feel a sense of liberation, feel a sense of peace, maybe for the first time in your life around money. Some of you guys have literally been struggling with anxiety for decades, and a good bit of it has to do with money in some way, shape, or form. It's like, I promise you, it's like, I can't tell you how many times people are like, well, my anxiety or my stress or my depression or my anxiety, or frustration, it's not about money. And then when you really get to it, you realize that actually a good majority of it is. And even then, guys, here's what's so cool. The same techniques that we teach people to deal with it around money applies to everything else in your life too. Nothing at all. So what's really cool is that you'll find, if again, especially if you've watched any of our interviews from our clients and stuff like that, we have a bunch more that we need to be doing. We're kind of behind on that. So we're going to do that here soon. I'm going to start reaching out to some more people. But what's really cool, guys, is that you will notice when we work with people, they're like, literally, yes, I got out of debt. I did this thing. We paid off this. We're saving. We're catching up on this. We finally have a plan. All that stuff is great. But what's funny is like, that's like the last thing people even talk about. What's really cool is that usually are like, I have been completely transformed as a person. I have a completely different outlook on life. I have a completely different way of showing up in life. My relationships with my kids is transformed. My relationship with my spouse is transformed. We have more intimacy, connection, passion, love. My work is more is flourishing. Like I'm just loving life. I feel like the most best, amazing version of myself, because again, we're dealing with this stuff at the root, guys. We're not just going on the surface and masking and giving you a bunch of superficial tips and tricks that most of the experts and the gurus out there have told you that you need and that are the real source of the problem when they're not. Okay. So if you guys want help, and again, even if you've tried so many things, Jeremy, I took the real estate course and I took this church course and I did this thing and I signed up for this thing and this person let me down and they ripped me off and this is a scam, whatever. All I can say is, just because you got food sick at a restaurant one time doesn't mean you swear off of food for the rest of your life. Okay. Maybe, just maybe, you went to a bad restaurant, or maybe somebody was working there that shouldn't have been working there and didn't follow protocol. Again, maybe there is still hope. Maybe there are ways out there that are actually proven that can fix it way easier than you ever thought possible. You just haven't met them yet or tried them that. And I can't tell you how many times I've met that in my life, guys. Like the moment I feel like, oh, this is the best approach for this thing, then you meet somebody else. I had that with chiropractic. I went to a chiropractor. She was really sweet, really great, but it was like, I was getting decent results. And then it's like, and then I went to, and then you go to another person before that. It was like, not so great. Then her, it was kind of great. And then you find the guy, and he was absolutely amazing. And he fixed it. And he was like, we're going to fix your leg. We're going to fix this. And then you leave and you move. And then we find another guy. And it's like, oh my gosh, this person's even better. And I didn't know. And he's like, actually, it's this, 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 and this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's right. So guys, it's one of those things where it's like, I guarantee you, like there's always a better approach. There's always something and that's why we're obsessed with learning. That's why we spend tens of thousands and thousands of dollars every year, guys, learning from some of the best wealth experts and peak performance psychology experts and people that have mastered what makes us tick and why we do what we do, and how to overcome challenges and problems and scenarios in life that hold most people back for their entire lifetime. And we can literally shift things in a matter of minutes, like I said. And when a lot of people will struggle with this for a matter of decades, we literally had a client last night who literally, after I think 20 minutes in one of our breakout rooms, was like, I'm completely free. And she was like, this is something that's been holding her back for decades. And it was sabotaging her relationship with her husband and her children and her role in fulfilling her dreams. And it was like, oh my gosh. And she had complete freedom around it. And it was something that she never knew was actually the real problem. And because she never talked to the right person, they've done counseling and they've done all the books and they've got all these different things, and they just needed a better approach. So guys, have faith. Don't give up. You're not hopeless. And just be willing to show up and commit to something. Like, trust that there are other people out there that really do care, really do have your best interests in mind, and that really are out there. Like, there are great people. Like, not everybody is a scam artist and out there to try to get your money. And I just keep hearing from all of these like stories of like, how do I, it's like I got ripped off with this, whatever. And honestly, let's be real, guys. A lot of it was legitimate. You just didn't do the work. And the problem with that, or it didn't work out for you for whatever reason. And guys, most of the reason why those programs don't work is because, again, they never do the deep mental and emotional work to get under the hood to figure out, again, why you keep doing what you're doing. It's not about just going into a course and learning that you need to budget, you need to save, you need to put money aside for retirement. All of those things, guys, everybody knows that. That's why the whole thing about like, well, the baby steps or this thing or like is the solution. That's like saying that the solution for weight loss is a treadmill or is a diet. That's not the solution. Everybody knows that those things are helpful. It's a matter of, again, why is it that we don't do the things that we need to do, and how can we shift it so that you break those patterns of life controlling procrastination, putting it off, paralysis analysis, just fear, all of the things that keep you being held back from your greatness and your full potential, and stepping into that and doing this stuff. And yes, having a solid plan. Yes, having a plan for the money, all that stuff we teach people. But guys, you have to do the deeper work that's driving like the car. It's not just about, like, the engine is not just the secret, guys. It's like the engine is nothing without the oil, without everything. But ultimately, it's completely useless without the right person in the seat that knows how to turn that thing on, crank it and put it in a gear and make it drive. You have to become the type of person. You have to change yourself on a fundamental level in understanding, why do I do the things that I'm doing, and what is going to help me to actually be responsible and plan and stick with it and grow and take the risks and do all the things that really are what cause you to flourish the most financially, and as well as getting a proven strategy. That's what makes us so different. That's what we're so proud of. And that's why, guys, most of the stuff that you've tried so far didn't work because there was no accountability, there was no support, and they did nothing to address what was going on in the actual body that was keeping you from actually taking the steps you needed to get the results you want in your life. Okay. So thank you guys for tuning in with us. That was a lot of fun. We're going to do it again soon next week, and I cannot wait to hang out with you guys again soon. So guys, jeremykrulikowski.com/apply. If you need help, let's talk. Let's see how we can help you guys. And again, we'll see you guys on our next show. If you have anybody in your life that needs help, that is struggling with anxiety, specifically if it might be around money, if you're not sure, you just know that they're anxious, please share this live with them, guys. It's not from a place of we're just trying to get people to book calls. Obviously, we'd love to help you if we can, if we're the best fit. But more importantly, guys, we just like, there is so much value packed in this, and this is stuff that's not being talked about in the church at all. So I want you guys to do this, post it, share it with your friends or family, and let's get the hope out there for people, because guys, you don't have to struggle. You just don't. It doesn't have to be a life controlling chronic problem. You can overcome chronic depression, anxiety, frustration, and it doesn't have to involve all of the traditional advice that you've got out there that's just not working. Okay. So much love to you guys. See you guys in the next show, and we'll talk to you guys soon. God bless. Bye.